Hello, everyone. Welcome to Technically Managing episode 16.
Is it 16 or 15?
We're doing great.
Let me see. I think it's
Okay.
15.
Okay, 15. I'm Zachary Telke,
And I'm Ramu Kami.
and this is the podcast where we're technically managing in life and also at our jobs as product managers at Oracle. Welcome to the show, everyone.
Welcome, everyone. So, how are you? How was your week? I know you have a lot to tell us today.
I know. So for the audience, I just got back from my first Oracle Cloud World, which was I got back last, was it 2 Sundays ago now? Yeah, because I was
It was
home this
last week,
weekend.
right? It
It
wasn't
was,
this week. It was last week.
yeah, I got back like Sunday the 24th. So it's been a week since I've gotten back now.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
It
you've had
feels so
time
much
to
lighter
think
being
about
like
it,
done with that. What was that?
right? You've had time to think about it, digest it, and have your takeaways and stuff.
Yeah. Most of it's just getting over being sick. I like literally got like really sick.
No. Did you get
The
COVID? Because I heard some people did.
I don't think so. Should I just like run through the whole like Cloud World week and like we can
Mhm.
like start there and dive into it?
Yeah.
Okay. So I got into Vegas Monday afternoon, and like we didn't have anything scheduled that day. So that was like good. Got to get like settled in the hotel, walk around and stuff. Tuesday, all I had was I was supporting my teammate Chris Hoyna's presentation. It
Mhm.
was like one of his workshops. So that was like pretty nice because I got to get used to like the conference hall and just like get a vibe feel on what the presentation rooms are like. And then Wednesday, I had two presentations. And then I had my final, I had two presentations and one booth that I had to volunteer on Wednesday. Thursday, I had my final presentation and another booth. And then Friday, we are done. And I literally like, so we finish up Thursday, like evening. Um, that's when like the conference is over and stuff. And Montana and I end up with, we use some of her hotel points so
Mhm.
we could like stay at Vegas for the weekend because like I've never done Vegas before. So we're
Right.
like, oh, it'll be great. You get off of Cloud World, like all the stress and work is done. Like we can have some fun in Vegas. Friday morning, I wake up just
Feeling terrible.
whole body shaking,
Oh my
like
God.
completely sore, fever, just like freezing. I felt terrible. Like my whatever it was, just like getting over that finish line. When I was done,
It
my
hit
whole
you.
body and immune system were just like, we're done now. Like we held ourselves together for all this time and we're
Wow.
just like completely crashing.
That's crazy. So you guys didn't get to enjoy Vegas after, or?
So on Friday, I literally just slept all day. It was actually kind of nice because Montana had enough like hotel points where we got a suite. So we had like a steam shower and like one of the nice baths. So it was literally just me going between sleeping, like hopping in that bath, like steaming out my head and like the shower, like back and forth while like Montana just drank mimosas in the living room and watched Love is Blind. So she had a great time with it. I don't feel like I feel kind of bad that we didn't get to like go out
Right.
Friday, but she seemed to be having a good time. But
That's good. She relaxed.
yeah, she got to relax. She was working from like my hotel room all week. So she had like a remote work week that she could use. And then Saturday I was feeling a lot better, like let's call it 75% better from Friday. And
Mhm.
all I really had from there is just like some congestion and like a little bit like a sore throat and cough. And that's just what I've been like trying to shake off since then. But like Saturday morning, we got some breakfast. I had a Bloody Mary. I'm like, screw it. I won $150 at blackjack. So I'm like, okay, we're starting to feel good. Like I'm no longer like bedside about to die mode. We got a little Bloody Mary. We won some blackjack money.
That's
So I
good.
like started to revive a little bit. I took like another long nap in like the early afternoon, but we were able to make our dinner reservations for Saturday night and like the Cirque du Soleil show that
Mhm.
we had tickets for. So we still got to like do some stuff. And then
That's awesome.
yeah, and then Sunday morning we like walked around a little, then it was time to leave.
Wow. That's a lot though, because like I can't believe you got sick.
I know. It was like I haven't really gotten sick that often lately. Like it's been like Montana's like only seen me sick once, and that was like
Wow.
a year ago. And she's
Hmm.
like, "Yeah, this you were like terrible. Like I've not seen you like this before." It was just kind of funny how just the timing of it was like literally like once I got to cross like the finish line, I'm just like, "Nope, we're done now."
It could definitely be your body telling you like, I need to take a break right now. So take a break, you know? I'm forcing
Yeah.
you to take a break. So how
That's
are you
why
feeling right now though? Are you better or like you don't feel anything anymore?
I'm like 95% back. Like
Mm-hmm.
usually by noon, I'm completely back to normal. But like I still kind of have one of those like you wake up a little bit congested and like your throat's a little, but then you like
Itchy or
shake it off. Yeah.
Mhm.
So we're doing pretty good.
Awesome. I'm glad you're better.
Yeah. Good. I'm glad that I didn't end up having COVID and getting stuck in Vegas.
I
That would
know.
have been bad.
Yeah. So what are your takeaways from Cloud World? How did you feel about presenting in person and, meeting a lot of coworkers, I guess, and, preparing, even like I feel like it'd be interesting to see tips on how to prepare as an attendee to go to Cloud World, like things that you would recommend people doing if they ever go to Cloud World. And I also know that we do have free passes, basically the online session passes. So every year we do get those.
Okay,
I
that's good to know.
Yeah, so people that are not able to attend, they can always get like a free pass. Of course, it's not the same as going in person, but you do get a lot of, short videos of sessions and resources and stuff. So it's also good to know, especially for college students, to dive into Oracle technologies in general.
Mhm. Do you know if like all the sessions get recorded? Because that was like one of the things where I don't think they recorded all the sessions that we did. And I'm like, oh, it would have been nice to have like the recording for my thing to put on like the Oracle YouTube. But
I don't think all sessions get recorded. So yeah, that's kind of like the downfall of what you miss, right? When you don't go to Cloud World, unfortunately, you don't get to see everyone's session. But I think you do get like the keynotes, and I don't know, some other information.
but yeah, I can like go in a bunch of different directions. I'll kind of start with like what the experience was like with the presentations and like feel free to stop me or just go down whatever rabbit hole or like ask whatever
Yeah.
questions in between. So it was interesting because like up until my first presentation, it was pretty terrifying because like it's so weird. Like Tuesday when they actually opened the like they had check-in on Monday night to get your badge and stuff. So we did that, but Tuesday was like the first real day stuff was going on. And it was nice that I had like a pretty light schedule. So when I first like got to the conference hall, it was like pretty overwhelming where it's just like this sea of people and there was that feeling where I'm curious if you know what I'm talking about, where just like with us being remote workers and the fact that we started like our whole Oracle career as like solution engineers. So it's like we've run into some of our coworkers in person. Maybe we've like gone into the office here or there, but like we don't really have much office interaction.
Mm-hmm.
Just like walking into that conference hall and seeing this like sea of like 15,000 people, and you're like, oh, they're all here for like the technology that my team and my company works on. It
Yeah.
was very kind of surreal. The Venetian Conference Center, like for your first time going in there, it's just huge. I think I looked like such a deer in headlights because I had like three different people within the first like 10 minutes be like, sir, are you lost? Like, can I point you somewhere? And I'm like,
Oh,
honestly,
are you
I'm just
serious?
wandering. Yeah, I'm not like that. I do not know what look was on my face, or if it's just like me being tall, so I stick out extra. And because I was aimlessly wandering too, because I didn't have anywhere to be. But like literally like three different like Oracle staff people were like, "Are you lost, sir?"
I'm
Like
done.
some kid in the mall can't find his parents. I'm like, "Where's Jeff? He's not here. I don't know where I am. I'm lost and scared."
Literally, literally.
So that was kind of amusing. I like literally when I was just like doing wandering like the area, I'm like, well, I can't go back that area because that's where the lady who pointed me in this direction was. And I can't like have her thinking I'm
You're
still.
like trying not to do eye contact with her.
Yeah, I'm trying not to like seem as lost and confused and overwhelmed as I was. So that was pretty funny. It was also really, there was like a bit of a cognitive dissonance at first, just seeing people you've like seen on Zoom,
Mm,
um, and kind of like connecting the dots between like trying to just like play that game of is this profile picture like that person, and like seeing the full like just body and like 3D of the person versus like I've been interacting with them on like Zoom pictures, or and like not even that much, like it's just kind of people that you've like noticed in passing. That
right.
was kind of odd. um so it was like pretty, like when I first got there it was a bit like, oh, like sensory overload. Having the Tuesday be pretty lightweight was nice just to like adjust and get used to it. Helping support Chris's session, that was really nice for just like getting a feel for things, because he went to Cloud World last year, so that was his first
Okay.
one.
Mm-hmm.
My first session that I presented myself was my SQL CL talk, which was just like a pure 45-minute presentation. That one was Wednesday morning, and it was the one I was most worried about because that had like the most memorization elements of it. Because I'm just going up and talking with my slide deck versus, say, some of the workshops that I'm working people through. It's like I've got the instructions. We're kind of all on this like guided, railed experience. So that is like less cognitively intensive from like a remembering things standpoint.
Right.
So once I finished that first presentation, it felt like a huge weight off my shoulders, where like getting through seeing Chris's, I'm like, okay, I feel a little bit better. Like this, it's like, yeah, this is like still important and I'm like going to treat it pretty intensely, but it's not as intense as like my imagination not having any info to go off of was making it. And
Mm.
then once I got through my first presentation and like it went smoothly, I got through all my talking points and like it was successful. That's when like the first just like weight off my shoulders went away. I'm like, okay, I feel a lot looser after that.
Right, because you've never presented in Cloud World. Like you don't know how the rooms are going to look, how I don't know, the screens are going to look behind you, and you only see pictures and stuff. So it has to be different, right? To like actually be there in person and seeing where people are going to sit down and all that stuff. So it was good for you to get that, first look the first day.
Yeah. And it's like also interesting too, just because there's like two groups of people who like come to your sessions. There are those that like sign up for it ahead of time. And then there are those who just kind of like, oh, like wandering around, this session's starting soon. Like, let's go in and see what it is. So you do like, it is interesting just those things that you kind of ignore on Zoom presentations,
Mm-hmm.
which is like if someone drops from the call or they enter the call, it's like you don't really notice or pay attention to that. But it's like
Exactly.
presenting in person, you have like all these people actually looking at you. And then
Mm-hmm.
it's like they're coming and going and moving. And there's like that whole interesting dynamic to it as well.
So for that session, they didn't have a computer, I'm assuming, but for hands-on live labs or workshops, did they provide computers for people?
I believe so there were some like station areas where they did provide laptops to try stuff out, but the general situation was like bring your own laptop to the workshop
Okay,
sessions.
that's good to know, I think,
Yeah.
attendees. Okay. So how was your other sessions?
Yeah, so that was the first one. Getting the SQL CL talk out of the way was good. Uh, then I helped. I'm trying to remember the order of things. I believe I helped volunteered on a booth. Then I had my second session later in the afternoon.
Mhm.
That was my like 20-minute baby workshop one. Basically, they're like trying out this like new experimental area on the demo floors called like community theater. And like the whole idea of it is these like micro sessions where you show up, you only have 20 minutes. So it's like, hey, like you just want to like show off a piece of technology. And then we also have like this laptop area to the side where it's like, after I show myself going through this, if you're interested, then like you can come over and like try the workshop yourself. Or also like, here's the link to it if you want to go do it on your own time sometime, because that's all on our like workshop live lab demo platform. That one was interesting because that was like right most of the sessions, like the talks and the workshops, they had their own like dedicated room for it. But there was also just this huge, like wide open room that had all these like little booths and stuff. I think they called that like the demo grounds. And that's where the community theater was. Like that was like right in the thick of all the action. I had like some technical issues, like things were like the Wi-Fi was being a little weird and um
You and the Wi-Fi.
yeah, I have terrible Wi-Fi experience. And also like there was just like some other little technical things where I'm like, this isn't me, and I just kind of had the roll of it. So
Mhm.
I had some hiccups during that session. I was able to like keep my cool during it and just like I just like talked through the sections that were having issues, where I'm kind of like, okay, like you should be seeing this here. Honestly, I don't know why it's not doing it. Like big conference center. I'm going to chalk it up to that. You can do the workshop on your own time if you want to. Like, here's the link for it. If you have any questions, like, feel free to reach out to me, kind of thing. And I can help you a bit. So I would say that, like, even though I kind of had the technical issues of that, that was like probably the most like choppy session just because of that aspect of it. But I would still say it was successful just because it's like, it was good. I kind of like rolled the punches there and I got through it and I didn't like lose my cool and I
Right.
still was able to like get through the material. Um, so that was good. And then my last workshop was on Thursday. I had another booth volunteering Thursday morning.
Wait,
And then
a question about the 20-minute session. Do you think they were effective? I feel like the main. Give me a sec because my dog is licking himself pretty strong. Leo,
sounds good.
can we stop? Thank you. Oh my God, I don't know if you could hear that, but he was being very extra.
No, it
Okay,
didn't go through the mic, so you're good.
so I feel like the main purpose of that is to people like so that people don't get like very overwhelmed with like 45 minutes an hour session, right? So do you think that was effective or do you think it was a little hard to like retain people since I'm assuming they were just walking around, right?
Yeah, so with that one, you had two groups of people also. Like you had more of the walk around element because like we were right in the thick of things, but that also still was a session you signed up for. So
Oh,
it's like they had some seats, but it was actually interesting because there's a lot of people interested in it. There were people like sitting in the chairs and also standing around. So those sessions were popular.
mhm.
Um, my big thing with it is I just wish I had like a little bit more time. But when I like went through and was practicing that session on my own time, I was able to get through the material in 20 minutes. So it was just kind of like one of those things where, say, like having 30 minutes and a little bit of buffer time could have
Mhm.
been helpful. But also, it's like the reason why I needed it was just because, like, technically I was running into some issues. But I
Right.
do like the idea and like it did seem popular. I think
Mhm.
like the only two things from it that could like potentially like be improved in my mind is it was kind of hard to hear at times just because there's like all the other stuff going around you and they had like a microphone but it wasn't like an attachable mic so I kind of just ended up like putting the mic down and yelling because I like needed my hands for the keyboard to go through the workshop. So maybe like having I don't know, like having a little bit more buffer space from the other stuff going around, or even just a portable mic could probably
Mm-hmm.
solve that problem. And maybe if it's like possible, the scheduling like 30 minutes instead of 20. But ultimately, like I like the session. Like I thought it was a good idea. Like I'm glad that I got to be a part of it and I was asked to do one of those, which was cool. And it's like I hope we could do it again next year and I get a chance to do another workshop for that. So that was kind of like my thoughts on the whole community theater thing.
Mm-hmm. And for example, for your hiccups with internet and stuff, have you thought of any ways of I don't know, going around that issue? For example, recording whatever you were not able to show or something like that? Would have that been a solution?
That could be an interesting idea if, yeah, because a lot of the times of presentations, like I'll record GIFs
Mm-hmm.
of just like my screen and stuff. And
Right.
that way, like I don't have to worry about just some weird random stuff happening that like derails the flow of a presentation.
Mm-hmm.
Especially with 20 minutes, I do kind of wonder if there would be like a good, if there'd be like a good type of scenario where instead of doing it live, like these are pre-recorded
Mm-hmm.
demos that we do where it's like we still stand up there and like we talk and explain what's going on, but we have, especially because it is like tighter time period, we can
Mm-hmm.
kind of keep that environment variable more controlled. We can like pause and talk to people, interact, like use a pointer on the screen. So
Mm-hmm.
because that would have allowed us to avoid like the issues that me and some other people were running
Yeah.
across. So I don't know, like maybe kind of like making it like more of a pre-recorded thing that we're walking them through live, just so you still have that interactive elements. That
Mm-hmm.
could be good. And like even like that way, we can like say like hand out materials and stuff and kind of use the presentation being recorded as a way to kind of free up some of our bandwidth to make it more interactive. So that could be interesting to think about, honestly.
Did you end up giving people materials
I
after the
had my
event?
business card. Oh, I want to show it to you. I made a pretty cool business card. I'll go grab it
Mm-hmm.
quick.
Yeah.
Okay, so when I was like getting ready for Cloud World, I was looking at like our business card, like requisition page and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, these are just like standard business cards. They're fine. But I'm like,
You want to
let's
make
have some fun with this and like make it stand out a bit. So this is, I'm pretty sure I showed it to you already. Like
yeah.
I custom designed one and this is like the front of it, like Zachary Telke, senior product manager, database tools. And then on the back of it,
That is super cool.
yeah, I have my like Telke Tech banner and a QR code that goes to my link tree that has like all my stuff on it. So
Mm-hmm.
I like handed these out and before my sessions, I put them on like all the little chairs of the like
Oh, that's so
the demo rooms I was in. So I'm like, just take one kind of thing. Like it's there for you
yeah.
to grab anyway. So I
You
ended up
know,
like handing out a couple.
something that will be super cool is for you to have maybe like a vlog that shows them resources so that whenever they scan that QR code, they have like specific resources from your session maybe in the next year.
Oh, that would, yeah, that'd be good too. Cause on the QR code, I do link to the product pages. So like I
Mm-hmm.
basically go like, here's the Telke Tech blog, here's technically managing podcast, here's my contact info for reaching me and my socials, and also like here are our product pages.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I can like configure the link tree for next year to like actually have specific resources like post session. That'd be a good way to
Mm-hmm.
do it. But
Yeah, I
yeah,
think that'll be cool.
but yeah, that was just like a fun little, I'm like, hey, like let's do a little something that's like cute and stands out.
Yeah, no, I love the idea. And I love the fact that you have like your vlog, like your websites, like animation and stuff.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. Well, like I feel like that those are really good tips, like the 20 minutes, maybe extending it to 30. I think that's definitely a good you always need buffer, right? So
Mhm.
every time that you're preparing for a presentation that's maybe 20 minutes, you try to make it 12, 13 minutes. So you have a couple of minutes to like answer questions, right? But when you have technical issues, it's hard.
Yeah. It was just like weird timing with some stuff where it's like I got behind on the setup because the things were going slow and I was like a little bit like rushy. So I mean it wasn't that bad. Like ultimately it was still good. But yeah, it was really nice like getting that experience because like overall all the presentations went really well. From what I heard, my like vice president Chris was there and he got to see some of my presentations. I'm pretty sure he's happy. That's the feedback
Awesome.
I've heard. I hope it's not the case otherwise. But yeah, my kind of like takeaway with it from everything was like I got through the material smoothly. My hour and a half like hands-on lab workshop Thursday at 12:30, that went off well. Like got to walk people through the material, got to cover everything. People seemed interested in it. So everything was like functionally good. And I think kind of my takeaway on the presentation standpoint,
Mhm.
leaving Cloud World is like, okay, I know how the ropes work for next year. I know how to like successfully execute on the presentation. The thing now for me is just getting better at being able to interact with the room energy wise, like getting better like around that about walking around the space, like projecting energy, making the audience feel connected. Where it's like I was like looking around the room when I was presenting, but I it's really hard to do, especially when you're new to those kinds of environments, because
Exactly.
when we're nervous, we tend to be like more
Like close.
defensive body energy. Yeah. It's just like at this point, I think my biggest thing is just keep getting better at being loose in those types of situations, which just comes with practice and like projecting the energy more, like smiling more, just
Mhm.
knowing how to hit different emotional frequencies at like different points of the presentation.
Yeah.
Um, one of the things that I do think I did well to kind of give myself like a cheat code with that is with my SQL CL talk. Uh, and we can put the link to this in the description of the video because on Oracle, one of Oracle's YouTube pages, I actually have one of the drafts of my presentation on this. And like you can see what I mean from this. But that's why I wish we could have recorded my actual sessions because it would have been great to get like the polished final version of that SQL CL talk up there. Because like the my first like round that I did for like a webinar, that went well, but
Mhm.
I'm like really happy with the fact that I got to like polish that presentation further.
Right.
Um, but essentially, like one of the things that I did with the presentation, which helped kind of keep me emotionally engaged and invested in it, even though I was kind of like working against the factors of just being a little bit like nervous with this being my first time doing this thing,
Mhm.
is the fact that I like wrapped it around like my personal story where my whole theme of the presentation is basically kind of like, hey, remember when you first like discovered certain aspects of technology and you just like a lot of this was when we were younger and a kid and we're just like amazed by all the different possibilities that like we could see with this and it felt like this was like your laptop was basically like a portal into like another world like technology allowed you to like set off on this digital adventure, so like that was the whole theme of this presentation where it's like, I want SQL CL to be your tool for like you setting off on this adventure with the Oracle database. And it's like, let's let's make technology fun again. Let's have that like childlike sense of like wonder and spirit of adventure. And like talked about my own story, just how I came from corporate finance and that wasn't really working for me. I was like uninspired and looking for a creative outlet. So I taught myself how to code. Next thing I know, I get the entry level job at Oracle, move to Austin, Texas, and it's like all history from there. So
Mhm.
by being able to kind of have this overarching theme and then use the example of like my own real life experience, that kind of because that is like something that like is really personally meaningful to me. It
Right.
helped me kind of overcome the fear and that natural like defensiveness and like not wanting to put yourself out there. That's very like reflexive to not having done many presentations in that environment. So
Mm-hmm.
like that is something that I think is a good tip for people. It's like if you're gonna be putting yourself in a situation where you have to give an in-person presentation,
Mm-hmm.
and let's say if you're not very much used to putting yourself emotionally out there, it's like keep the presentation on theme and make sure you get the points you need across, but like wrap it in a personal story that you can relate to, because like you do get a bit of that courage being like, you know what, like, no, this is my story and this is important because I know how this was personally meaningful to me. And if something is personally meaningful to you and people can tell that when you're presenting, it
Mm-hmm.
makes them all the more willing to put themselves out there and think about their own personal version of it. Like in this case, like, yeah, like when was the first time that I got like really excited about technology? It's like, I think it's
Exactly.
very easy for us all to relate to the minutia of like your day in and day out of like your job. Be like, you know what? Like, no, it's like I could probably be a little bit more like enthusiastic or curious and kind of like reignite that spark. So that was kind of what I was going for the theme of all that.
Yeah, and I feel like we're humans, right? We like
Mm-hmm.
to connect with people personally. Even if you're giving a technical presentation, people left that room saying, wow, I met Zach and I also learned about SQL CL. So I think that that's a very powerful tip for anyone, right? Because I do think that we also tend to connect not just with the technology, but with the people that are creating that technology or making that technology better. So I think that's a
Mm-hmm.
really good tip, to be honest.
Yeah, and I feel like especially for technical presentations, because it's so information dense.
Mm-hmm.
It's There's kind of like this rule of giving a presentation in general where you want to wrap it in a story because the human brain processes stories the easiest for retention. And like that's like especially so with technical presentations because like you need that story structure just to be able to like peanut butter pill the information that you're getting across, like especially when it's extra dense.
Exactly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
People overall will kind of, even if they didn't understand anything about the presentation, they'll go back to that story and they'll say, oh, this is why this is amazing, or this is why this is useful, because you end up kind of understanding that story, so you get the message behind it.
Yeah,
So I love storytelling for sure. That's
I
something
know.
that I can connect with a lot.
Yeah, and like that was like literally exactly what I was thinking about this presentation. I'm like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
what's important for people to get out of this? It's like, well, we want to show them the features and stuff so they know like it has a lot of power going on. But let's be honest, like they're gonna have to relearn this anyway because you're
Mm-hmm.
not gonna retain it all first time. Like all you really need to do is get people to associate what you are talking about with the emotions that you're trying to get across and make sure that there's like enough of an emotional impact for them to act on it, like aka download the thing and try it out.
Exactly.
So it's like, yeah, I feel like there's like layers to it where it's like there's that kind of trigger that we want to get them to act on. And it's like as long as we can do that, everything else is just gravy on it. And I don't know, it's like I love the storytelling aspect too. I'm just like that's something that I'm really looking forward to continuing to get better at and refining like in my career.
Yeah. Did you see any other presentations? And did you see, like, did you have someone that you were like, oh my God, they present really well? I love the fact that they like walk around and they connect with the people and they do their storytelling and all that stuff.
Yeah, so the two I was pretty much like running around like crazy the whole time after Tuesday, especially because like we're doing this video recording project for K Malcolm's team.
Mm-hmm.
So like and we have to like record all these like little scripts and stuff. So like in between just any kind of free moment I had was literally like running through Chris's presentation, his workshop to make sure that like, okay, I'm in a good mental space for it. Practicing my presentation and like just running through my workshop to make sure it's like fresh and top of head, or
Mm-hmm.
doing the video recording stuff. So I was like pretty much like on my feet from like dawn till dusk the whole time. But I did get to see Larry's keynote and Andy Mendelssohn's presentation. Those were both pretty cool. And I was pretty like mentally tapped out. So there's like these little interesting things about each of them, like each of what they were talking about that I was like, oh, that stuck out to me. But by and large, just because like cognitively I was pretty tapped, I'm like, instead of trying to focus on the technical details of what they're getting across, I was pretty like focused on like, especially with Andy's presentation, just I wanted to see how someone at his level handles stage presence, especially because it was like so top of mind for me. So
Right.
just like seeing like how he paused, like how he like bounced between slides, how he walked around, and kind of like that natural energy, that was something that I was paying attention to and was like interested in. And just it's cool seeing how they keep their cool
Mm-hmm.
having like a full packed room like that.
Right.
Um, I wonder how many presentations they've like given. I
Literally.
Yeah, Larry's a good one for this because he's on camera so much. I almost want to, when I have some time, just like get a collection of his like keynotes and presentations and just see how his presentation style, like
Has
what it's been
changed.
like, yeah, like what's been common threads, what's like changed over the year. Like, is this like a professional athlete thing where it's like, oh,
You get
he's good
better.
now, but you should have seen like LeBron during his like golden years. Like, I want to kind of like get a large sample size of like some of the best like presenters at Oracle,
Mm-hmm.
just to see if there's any kind of patterns or trends I could pick up on that. Cause I think that could be helpful.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, it's just totally different to be honest. I can't even imagine like presenting in person.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like what you said, I would be so like rigid at at first. So I look forward to seeing people presenting in person just to
I
see how
know.
they do it.
We got to get you a cloud world next year.
We'll see. We'll see because it's hard to get approved.
Yeah.
Um, were there any news or technology that you were like, wow, I didn't know Oracle did this and this is really cool?
I'm trying to think. There was a lot of like Oracle database 23C talk
Mm-hmm.
and like generative AI type work. They
Mm-hmm.
had this one feature called, I think it was Quick SQL, that was pretty cool, where it's like basically you can do these like minor little prompts, uh and it will generate the SQL around it. Like think of it kind of like writing in shorthand, and it'd like fill out like the actual SQL for it.
Oh, that's really cool, actually.
Yeah.
So you would write your own prompt. So you would say something like, I don't know, select this from this table, like without doing SQL, or how would that work?
Yeah. I'm trying to think of a good way to describe it. I think it'd be more like create a table
Oh,
with 5 columns and these like data types, and it would like generate the actual like SQL code for it. It was like basically a way to like kind of make things more shorthand, human readable, and it kind of generates a technical, like accurate long form of it.
oh, that's really cool.
Yeah, they were showing
That's
that off during Andy's presentation. There were some other things, but honestly, my brain's like just top of mind. It's like hard for me to kind of like access. But one of the things that I found really like cool though was getting the customer energy in
mm-hmm.
person was so nice. And especially coming from like a remote work environment, I'm still pretty much like a work from home loyalist where it's like I fully believe that I am more productive and can get more done by having like a work from home environment. But just being able to go to this conference and see in person, like talking to customers, interacting with them, like getting their energy in person and
Mhm.
just seeing how like they get excited about the stuff that you're working on and
Yeah.
like you being able to like help them or talk to them about like certain things, it just made everything feel so much more meaningful and impactful versus there's like a lot of times where it's like people will be nice over email, but especially if you have a busy day, it can be hard to kind of keep in mind like how you're helping people and
Yeah.
not look at that stuff as just like, oh, here's like another task that just entered my little like to do checklist and just kind of leave it like that. Like getting to have those in-person interactions where you're seeing that direct benefit of how your work is impacting people, that was like a really nice like mental energy
Yeah.
refresher and just kind of like left me leaving the conference like feeling that much more motivated and just kind of like I guess just like proud of like what I do type thing. Where it's like, oh yeah, it's like this is a nice motivation to kind of keep up that energy and that like level of like commitment to what I do, just because you know there are people on the other side who are like actually grateful for it. It was also nice too because when people ask you questions
Mhm.
in person, it kind of reminds you that's just like, oh, they're just kind of curious and trying to learn things. They're not treating it, it's like not like a test
Yeah.
where there are so many times where I find myself in like a mindset, especially when it's like an email question or even like a webinar too, or just like a customer call where
Mhm.
it feels like I'm in school and I'm
They're
being asked
testing
a
you.
question. Yeah. And if I get it wrong, I fail the test and Jeff fires
Yeah.
me and I have to go find another job. Or it's just like, oh no, they're just curious. And like, yeah, they would like an answer, but if you have to be like, send me the details over email, I'll get back to her. Like, let me look into that to you. They're like, okay. Like it's not as like in the moment, like testy as you think it is, or that like you can easily kind of project your fear onto.
Right. I feel like it's also good for you to follow up with people because you meet them in person, but then you still get to have that connection of, hey, I'm definitely going to send you this,
Mhm.
and connect back with them. And I also think that the part of, feeling proud of what you're working, at is like super important because sometimes we forget that people are actually using our products, and they're solving like really cool, complex problems. But we're
Mhm.
just like, I'm just working on this because I'm working on this.
I
So
know that
that's really cool.
that's like one of the things that's like so odd about this job is you have to go between like super zoned in brain mode and
Mhm.
very like big picture a lot. And especially if you're like, say, you're really focused on one mode or another, it's
Mhm.
hard to like, sometimes it's hard to like shift gears.
Yeah.
Like, for example, just getting ready for Cloud World, I was so in the weeds, just focusing on my workshops and scripts and presentations. So I was like super zoned in. I like had to tune a lot of other environmental stuff out just so I could focus. But like then to kind of get out of your own little like study bubble world and be like, oh yeah, like this impacts, like this actually is like impacting the stuff around me. And there's a bigger picture to this. I'm like helping keep things moving. It is, it's kind of like the feeling of me just like first arriving at Cloud World and I was like just disoriented and all the people are like, do you need help? It's just like, oh, this is, I have a real job. Jeff doesn't
Where's your
just,
parents?
yeah, like Jeff's not just paying me money to do these like random things as like a charity case. Like,
Exactly. No.
yeah, it was just very surreal.
That sounds awesome, honestly. So you got to talk to customers?
Yeah, I got to talk to some customers. I think I handled the Q&A. The thing I'm always most scared about right now
Q&A.
is Q&A during the presentations because I can make sure that the material that I'm covering, I like fully understand everything on all my slides. But
Mhm.
just because our stuff is like so dense.
Like,
We're
right.
like, yeah, we're like 1 to 2 years into being product managers. Like we're not, it's not practical. Like we want to get to the point where we know everything as soon as possible, but it's
Yep.
completely understandable that we have like these gaps in our knowledge and people have been using our tools for years
Years.
and years. So that's the thing that like always gets me personally most uncomfortable, mostly because I feel guilty about it, where it's like, I'm supposed to, like, I'm the product manager for
Yeah,
this.
like
Like,
you're
I should
supposed to know
know.
everything.
Yeah. Like, my logical brain's like, well, you're not going to learn everything in a year. But the like emotional part of my brain is like, this is my job too. So
Right.
that's kind of like the conflict. I think I handled Q&A pretty well. I was able to answer a couple stuff, and the stuff I wasn't able to answer, like Vice President Chris was in the room for the presentation, so he handled those. So the Q&A like flowed pretty smoothly. Um, I think that's also something that I want to get better at, being more
Hmm.
chill about. Like I don't think I was like weird, hopefully, but I could definitely at least inside of me feel personally that like the Q&A still gets me nervous because it's
Hmm.
you're going from your rehearsal brain mode, which is I'm kind of like zoned in, presenting my material. You're in that kind of vibe to now it's like, oh, I have to switch brain modes where I don't know what's going to come at me now. And
Right.
I just talked for 45 minutes, so my brain is tired. And I still have to like now think on the fly. I would say it's probably like the
Yeah.
hardest thing.
I don't know if this happens to you, but when they ask me a question, I get nervous. And even if I know the answer, sometimes I'll just say something and I'm like, did that even make sense? Because I'm just talking, but I don't know if I'm like thinking or like saying something that makes sense, you
Oh
know?
yeah. I feel that way in two situations while presenting and also on this podcast, where it's like something will come up and I'm like trying to work through it in my brain, talking out loud, and I'm not paying attention to what I'm saying. And I'm like, did that make sense? Or did I
Yeah,
just like just murmur off like a crazy person for a minute there?
literally. Like, I'm just like, okay, I know what I want to say, and I try to say, but then I go back and I'm like, did I say that or not? Or what did I say? And it just, I can't even remember, honestly.
Yeah. Oh, one of those that made me proud is when I mentioned a couple of podcasts ago how I went on like a work trip to Dallas and I presented like live in person there. And they asked me like a simple question, which is just like my brain just froze, which was like basically with SQL CL Liquid Base, which like automates your database deployments. The
Hmm.
question was basically like, what happens to the data if you do a database automation where it destroys like two columns or something?
Hmm.
And it just I like took it like I tried to like take it way too deep. And I'm like, what does happen to data when it gets destroyed? I'm like, where does it go? And I just like spun myself up way too serious about that in a moment. And the answer was simple. It's just like, yeah, the column gets destroyed, the data in the column gets destroyed. I
Hmm.
got that question again at Cloud World and I was so
You're
ready for it.
ready.
I'm like,
Exactly.
I'm like, the data gets destroyed. I'm like, it was just like such a simple, stupid question, but just getting used to kind of like answering that stuff in person and not just having your brain spin in weird directions for things that you know if you're just calm and being like asked it in like a relaxed situation. That was
Yeah.
like funny to me.
I think at some point you also get the same questions over and over again. So you're
Mm-hmm.
going to get super comfortable with answering that question. It's not
That's
going
what
to
Jeff
be a
says.
surprise anymore.
Yeah, he's like, honestly, you'll start to just see the patterns, and then it goes from you being worried about the questions to you being like, I've heard this question 1,000
Yeah,
times, which I'm looking forward to.
me
Jeff
too.
seems to be like pretty like, oh, this question again. I'm like, I cannot wait until I'm no longer scared of that question.
Right. You're like,
Yeah,
at some point, you're like practicing the answers to your questions too because you already know them. So you're
it
good.
is. Yeah, it's so funny just seeing Jeff like be IC6, like the highest like level you can be in the company and knowing so much about our stuff and just on like our end being new and just like that juxtaposition on how he knows how to handle those like Q&A just like on the cuff situations and he's like yawn about it like been here 1,000 times
That's crazy.
I know. It's really nice getting to learn from him and watch him in those kinds of environments because it'll just make like my learning so much quicker. Just being able to
Exactly.
like absorb from him secondhand. But one of the things that I did want to mention, we had a product management, like a database product management dinner one of the nights. One of my favorite things about that whole Cloud World trip was being able to like hang out and spend time with the other database PMs like in person.
Hmm.
Everyone is like so freaking nice. And just being able to like chill with them at the dinner and in other situations where it's like my brain's not spun up on a work problem. It's not just like, quick, can you help me get this answer? Like,
Yeah.
all like you want to be polite and stuff, but your brain's like in a thousand different directions.
Hmm.
Just getting that social time with people was so nice and just made you feel like so good for connecting
Yep.
and getting to like know more about them and all that stuff. I loved it so much. Like that is one thing is most of the PM teams are pretty remote work scattered all over the place. But
Hmm.
I would love for us to just, I don't know, like once or twice a year, just
Hmm.
have some kind of event where we can like get together and chill and do team building just to kind of remind each other, just like, hey,
We're
like
not
we
just
all,
here to ask you things.
yeah, like we're all just people who enjoy spending time together. Just
Mhm.
because like even with people who like and you get along with, just the longer you are in like the Zoom and Slack environment,
Yep.
it feels like there's almost this like drift towards like getting colder
Hmm.
just by nature of it being a less personal medium. And that was just like such a nice refresher. Be like, oh yeah, these people who I interact with, not too crazy often, but like often enough, just getting to get that like energy of them and just it makes you feel less, I would say, insecure around them and less kind of like, oh, what do they think of me?
Hmm.
Like get in your head about the stuff that you say because like you get that like immediate feedback.
That is crazy because I think it was this week or last week we released a clip where we were talking about how, the downside of working remote, and we were literally talking about how we don't get to see people's expressions, or we don't get to talk to people about their lives. So every time that we reach out to people, for example, like me, if I reach out to a developer or something, is because I need something.
Mhm.
And we might not know how they're taking it or how I'm sounding because I might be so dry. So it feels like I'm always just reaching out because I need something and I'm not really connecting with that person. So that's like the biggest downside of working remote and never meeting like your team. At least like me, I have never met my team, right?
Yeah.
So I definitely feel like it would be nice to connect with them like at a outside level where you're not only talking about work, but you kind of show them that you also appreciate their work, or you like them, they like you, like at a professional way,
Mhm.
so that you don't feel always like you're just asking for favors or asking for something or telling them, hey, this might not be working or whatever. Like I do try to make that effort on Slack or meetings. I always tell them, oh, thank you so much for working on this because I really do appreciate their work, and I would want everyone to appreciate my work too, right? So, of course, I try my best to do that, but it gets so hard when you're not in person because you don't
Yeah.
get their body language or their facial expression or anything like that. So, it gets hard.
Yeah, fully agree with that. And like especially just having the chance to do it outside of work conversations, just because
Mhm.
like the stuff that we work and have to communicate on
Mhm.
is usually very complicated and technical, which like sends you into your logical brain mode, which is like you can't really when you're it's kind of interesting. I'm curious if you think this way too, where when you're kind of in work mode,
Mhm.
I'm almost not entirely present in the moment because so much like cognitive horsepower is going to like trying to recall and calculate at the same time. So
Mm-hmm.
just like being able to like put, and I feel like that almost kind of puts you in like a more of like an on edge mental mode
Mm-hmm.
versus like, especially like the PM dinner or just when we had like some downtime, like at lunch or something, or just in between sessions, when we didn't have to be in like cognitively spun up mode, it just felt like everyone's guard was like lower too. And you could just be more in the moment and enjoying your time with them rather than trying to predict what they're going to ask next, or they said this and you're following it down like three different thought roads.
Right. Yeah. No, I that's definitely super nice. And I
Yeah.
think you're right with, having like at least once or twice a year a get together, where you get to meet your coworkers instead of, you know, just asking them questions about work.
Yeah. But I know Cloud World's done now. I need to I have like personal goals for myself now. I need to like chill a little bit. And the
Hmm.
two things I need to be more on top of now that like that huge weight is off me is because I was mentioning this on the podcast. I was just like I was finding myself sliding health wise and exercise wise, where it's like I wasn't prioritizing it enough compared to what I've historically done. Like when I was a solution engineer, and even when I was like a beginning of my PM career, I was like really good about doing my kettlebell workouts and like running a crazy amount.
Hmm.
And that had me, it just gave, I could mentally spin a lot faster and I had a lot more energy from it. But just like, especially leading up to Cloud World, I noticed that I was like slipping on these things and I wanted to like get back on the horse better, but it's also hard when you're like scrambling with everything and your
Yeah.
time is limited where it's like, well, I know like the theoretical answer is like, oh, like you want to make sure that you make time in your day with like work to like go to the gym and eat healthy and make sure you get your sleep.
It's
And on
hard.
like, yeah, and on like a macro side of things, like long term, it's like, yes, you will have more energy and like you'll be more productive over the long term if you do those things. But when you're in like a short term rush and you have like a deadline coming up and you're
Mhm.
like, I have 2 hours left in this day and I'm behind on this thing, you're like, I kind of need to just like knock it out, even if it kills my gym time. So I was
Exactly.
like trying to fix that habit right before Cloud World. And I would say like I did okay with maintenance just so I didn't like completely fall off.
Hmm.
But now that I don't have those hard deadlines, I'm realizing that's like, okay, I need to prioritize just getting myself back into like a really good workout routine, especially because the way that like working out is, it sucks how the more you do it, the easier it is. And like if you've kind of aren't in that loop, it's even like harder to do. So it's like I'm gonna use this like breathing space to get over that like hard initial hump and make sure I like get back into this like good habit. And I also need to teach myself how to relax again because I'm realizing that I've kind of forgotten how to relax.
That's not good.
Yeah.
That is really not good. You definitely need to learn how to relax. Like, even if you just sit down quietly, without your phone and just, I'm telling you, breathe a little bit,
I know.
it helps so much. And I feel you with all this cloud world because, of course, even though I didn't attend, I was also, working on material and stuff like that. And I feel like it was like getting ready for a super super big event, so then when you guys were at Cloud World, that I didn't have to worry about Cloud World stuff. It was such a release, like I felt like I was like, oh my god, I'm going to be super extra productive this week because I don't have to worry about nothing to do with Cloud World. And my brain, it was just so hard to concentrate that week that you guys were on Cloud World. I was like, ugh, I really feel like I can't work anymore at
Like it's just
times.
that like recharge period. It's almost kind of like my Friday morning after Cloud World, where it's like you're like, oh, I'll have all this energy now that this thing is done. And really,
Literally.
you're just like crashing.
No, legit. I think it was
Huh.
like this, and then you guys were at Cloud World, and my energy went. And I really tried my best. Like I did a lot of things actually because my computer, first of all, is full with stuff, especially because I do a lot of videos, so I had to delete a lot of things, in my computer. I did a lot of like organization, like seeing what I really have to work on. Now that I'm done with Cloud World, I started writing vlogs and stuff like that. But it gets so hard when you're like preparing for something for so long and you're putting so much energy towards it that when you're done with it, you're like, okay, I'm done with my test basically. Like it feels like I
Yeah.
graduated, like it's such a weird sensation.
I know. And like, that's like what I'm realizing now. I'm like, okay, what I have to focus on is like getting myself back to a good baseline because it's just like, I thought that would just be like a natural, oh, now that Cloud World's done, it's like, I'll go back to where I was, like,
Exactly.
say, the end of last year. I'm like, oh no, it's like, I have to kind of train my body and brain that it's like, it's no longer in survival mode a bit.
Mm-hmm. How has your first week back been from Cloud World?
Honestly, it's been like it's been pretty from like an outside standpoint, it's nice because I haven't been like bothered with too much stuff because everyone's kind of like in cloud world recuperation mode.
Yeah.
The fact that I was getting over being sick and also just kind of that like mental exhaustion, it's kind of like what you're saying. It's like I wasn't as productive as I wish I was,
Mm-hmm.
but it's still like the day just like blew by. It's just I didn't really have as much energy and like mental juice. I think what I'm gonna do, honestly, is I'm taking off this Friday for ACL, like Austin's music festival going on.
Oh.
I might take off all of next week
Mm-hmm.
just so I can like do a full reset because there's some cool projects I'll be working on in like the months to come. Really excited about it. It'll be nice because we don't have like the hard deadlines of Cloud World, so I can be a little bit healthier about how I approach it. Um, but I think my kind of like goal right now is like get through my to-dos and things I need to do. Like I spent a lot of time last week just I giant piles of notes I didn't get to just organizing and putting electronically in my OneNote and taking care of these like little odds and ends I had to touch base on. I think for this week, take care of the stuff I need to, get myself in like a good spot where I'm like primed to like take a week off, refresh and recharge. So then I can like hit the ground running when I get back.
Yeah. And have you gone back to like working out, eating healthier and all that stuff this week, or are you planning on doing that when you recharge?
I'm starting to get better about it. The food hasn't been the worst with me. There are like definitely days where I'll like finish work and be exhausted and like not and be sick of my or like during the getting ready for Cloud World where I'd
Yeah.
like finish work, I was exhausted, I'm sick of my meal prep,
Yeah.
and I'm like, screw it, I'm gonna order Uber Eats and be unhealthy. The thing for me though is getting my kettlebell workouts in. That's where I've been like lacking the most. So it's like even this weekend, I could like tell it was harder, but I've just been getting back into the swing of getting my like circuits in for that. So I especially want to make sure I'm on top of that like this week and especially next week if I take off. I want to like really go deep into just getting myself into that rhythm because I'm just trying to like I just want to like reset my rhythm basically at
Yeah.
this point. I think that will help me with it.
Yeah. It feels like going on vacation, right? Like you go on vacation and then you come back and you need to go back to working out, your routine, eating healthy. And that's like the hard part of everything, to be honest. That's when
Yeah.
you fall off always.
Do you have any like what's kind of like on your agenda now that Cloud World's done? Are you kind of like in a day by day, like everyone's still in the recuperation period, or are there kind of like any things that are on your radar that you're like looking forward to or are going
I
to be
feel
like big
like
projects?
there's a lot coming up, honestly. Um, I love that my team has gotten a lot of feedback from Cloud World and we're trying to work towards gearing, like our product towards whatever people really wanted to see or what they were asking for. Um, in general, I think that's super important because um I mean, we're doing this for people, right? To help people solve their problems. So we're working on definitely new content like vlogs, maybe something. I kind of want to come up with a course that I should be working on, to be honest, but on the new SQL syntax, what we have with PGQL right now. So that's kind of what I want to focus on, and I'm coming up with ideas and stuff. So there's a lot of work that has to be done. And a lot of things that I am looking forward to them because it's like exciting stuff, like it's like creative stuff, like maybe if I'm able to come up with like a course or something, that's something creative, right? Or different videos for all of the new things coming up. I'm like really excited, at least with graph. There's a lot of new things coming up, and SQL, it's already a pretty cool product by itself already. um so yeah, there's no breaking here.
Yeah. I know. I'm glad that I have stuff on my plate that I'm excited for too, where
Yeah.
it's like I think I'm in a very good moment with like a combination of factors of like, okay, people kind of know that we all need some breathing room right now,
Mhm.
but like at least there's stuff that I'm excited about to kind of like keep me moving forward. I definitely want to do more uh technical content now that I'm not fully just technical writing out by getting my workshops ready.
Mhm.
I'm definitely planning on starting. I haven't done technical videos yet, really, except for the webinars on Oracle's channel, but Telky Tech, the YouTube channel, I'm gonna start releasing technical videos on our stuff, and I'm gonna start writing more technical blogs
We need to work on
on
our
the
blog.
website. I know that was something that just got thrown to the wayside,
Yeah.
but I definitely want to do that. I'm also going to re-release, like restart the newsletter this week. So if you want to be up to date on what's going on my end of database tools, go on telky.tech. The newsletter is on the front page. I'm going to start that up again. I used to do it on like a weekly basis, but that was like too much with the other work responsibility. So I'm going to, it's October 2nd right now. At some point this week, I don't know which day yet, I'm going to re release the newsletter on a monthly basis, which is just going to be like a collection of like, hey, here's everything going on. Um, so you can like make sure that you're up to date on all the content that we're creating and like new news coming out.
Yep. And the good thing is that you also feature other people's blogs, right? And
Yeah.
I feel like your blogs are very short and right to the point, so they're super easy to read, So I definitely recommend you guys to subscribe.
Yeah. So getting back on the wagon with that.
Exactly. That's awesome. I'm looking forward to getting my little email.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to us doing our content together and being able to like feature your stuff on the newsletter as well.
Yep.
I know this also, if anyone at Oracle's listening to this and you have any content you want to push, like reach out to me. More than happy to feature like any cool stuff that's relevant in the newsletter.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But yeah, do we think that's it?
Yep. I think it's a wrap for today.
Yeah, that's another episode of Technically Managing. Thanks for oops, there's my alarm too. Thanks for coming by, everyone.
Thank you. Have a good day, everyone. Bye.
See you in a month.